Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars and welcome to another PlayStation 4 review. Today's review is for Genesis Alpha 1. Now this is a game that I believe was released last year, and it was a game that I was pretty looking forward to at the time. It released, I bought it, I think I even put some gameplay up on the channel at the time, and then I just never got a chance to put a huge amount of time into the game or even review it. However, since there's not really that many new releases coming out game-wise, decent ones anyway, or certain ones that I'm interested in, I'm going through my library and revisiting games that I bought to have another go and give you a review on them. So, what is Genesis Alpha 1 about? Well, this is a science fiction resource management game crossed with building, and a first-person shooter. It dips its toes into many genres, this game, and it's actually quite a fun and atmospheric PlayStation 4 title. Now, it's I remember at the time, I can't remember how much I paid for this. It might have been $24.99 or $29.99. I could be wrong. This is the sort of game now you better pick up in a sale very often. I do see it in sales. In fact, it might be in a sale right now, or it was just in a sale. You better pick this up for probably $12.99, $14.99. So straight off the bat, I would say if you're into these sort of games, really atmospheric sci-fi games that's got like a resource management thing attached to it and building elements attached to it, you're going to be into this game. Now, essentially, the building part of this game is you're on this spaceship initially, and it's a very basic spaceship, and you have to collect resources either by tractor beaming them in from outer space or going down to planets and collecting it from planets, and you collect these resources, and that will then allow you to build and expand your ship and improve your own equipment and things like that. And you can build things like a hangar. You need a hangar so that you can go down to the planets. You need to build clone labs, workshops, storage places, refineries, cruise quarters, and as you progress through the game, more and more options become available to unlock. Some of them are luxuries. It might be ways to keep the crew happy and healthy, like canteens, things like that. And yes, you do have a crew here on this ship. Essentially, you're a ship full of clones, and you could actually lose people pretty quickly on this game. You could either go down on a planetary mission with someone or send them down on their own. They could get killed, or they could get sick and die on the ship, or they could get killed by aliens that get on board the ship. So you've got to keep basically cloning them. So you need a cloning lab, and then you need the right kind of DNA and biomatter, or whatever it's called, to be able to clone not only humans, because if you collect enough DNA from these alien creatures that you encounter, you can then clone like a human version of these alien species that will work on your spaceship as well. So that's really cool. Now, this game tips its hat to quite a few pretty legendary sci-fi films. Certainly Aliens, because when an alien gets on your ship, and they basically get on your ship when you tractor beam in this scrap from out in space, there might be like aliens attached to it and stuff. So you tractor beam them in, and they will then attack your ship, and if you don't deal with them quickly, they can really damage your ship and really cause a lot of problems. So you can set up defences and electric grids to kind of contain them and keep them under control. But when they arrive on the ship, you've got this like scanner light from aliens, so you know which direction they're coming from, and it's pretty intense. And there can be some pretty intense encounters with these creatures when they get on your ship, because sometimes it might just be one or two. Sometimes it might be like a whole pack of them. And if they get under the ship, they'll breed at you. Now it can cause all sorts of chaos, so you've got to really keep on top of it. And another sci-fi influence I felt with this was the sci-fi film Silent Running. There's like this big biome with all this vegetation and trees and plants and things like that, and it feels like it's the central hub. and it just reminded me of that sci-fi film Silent Running. And there's these robots in the game that collect your resources from the ship and deliver it to the deposit and store rooms, and they look like the robot as well from Silent Running. So it's a really fun game to play for the most part. I mean, it's fairly basic, as you can see from the graphics here. There's nothing overly special to look at. It's a low budget game, but it does its job, and it's got a real atmospheric feel about the game. It's got this look about it. It feels really cold and sci-fi inspired. It's actually quite a nice look to the game. And there are some customizable options when you start the game. You could choose which faction you want to be, and depending on who you choose, it slightly changes the setup of the game in regards to aesthetics, i.e. how the ship looks and what equipment you start with, how many weapons you start with, and how many resources you might start with, things like that. So it doesn't change it drastically, but it does, I think, make a difference depending on how you want to start the game. So yeah, it's the planetary hubs, right? We'll talk about when we get down to the planets. Now, when I initially found out that you could actually land on planets and explore them, that really sold it to me. However, while it can be quite fun to land on these planets, a lot of them look very much the same, and it's the same routine every time you land on a planet. You'll start collecting resources, aliens will turn up, some form of aliens depending on the planet. You've got to kind of defend yourself, collect these resources, maybe find some artifacts that will improve your equipment and stuff like that, and then get off the planet. Now, admittedly, these encounters can get quite intense at times, and quite exciting, because you could be there are some times you'll hide back in your spaceship, and they'll start hoarding up the ramp, these creatures, especially if your turret that you put down has been blown up. You've got to try and defend yourself, because if you die in this game, you're dead, and then another clone essentially is promoted to the rank of captain, and so that's how the game keeps going. But if you've no clones left, game over, basically. So it's in your best interest really to try and keep your clones going, get a clone lab going, start cloning more crew members, and when you go down to a planet, probably take 2 or 3 of you if you like. It will give you a better chance of getting off some of the planets. Some of them are dead easy, some of them are a little bit more challenging, but they're not particularly pleasing to look at. They all feel quite samey. So yeah, if you like sci-fi games, and if you like resource management and building games and first-person shooters, I mean, don't get me wrong, the shooting in this game is basic to say the least, but it does its job. I mean, I'm not a big fan of first-person shooters anyway, but I find it quite responsive, the shooting and things like that, and it can be quite exciting. These alien creatures running at you that look like facehuggers, some of them. It can get quite intense. But I really like the resource management side of this game, and the building and the expanding of your spaceship, because you could basically do it however you want. It's not particularly forgiving, this game, because if you build things in the wrong order, and I do suggest you do the tutorial first, you're kind of stuck. You need to build a hangar quite early on. You need to get a clone lab built quite early on. You need to build a couple of other things as well quite early on, and if you build the wrong things too soon, you run out of resources too quick, and then it makes the game a little bit more challenging. So you might find yourself starting this game once or twice just to get it right. But it's a well-made game for how much it is. It's basic, it's certainly not AAA quality, but from my perspective, I'm going to give this game a solid 7 out of 10. I don't feel I can give it more because it is very rough around the edges, but it's a decent game certainly, so I hope you enjoyed this review.